Hello and welcome to this tutorial, this video lesson. In this video, we are going to look at struct methods. Struct method. Let's dive straight into our code over here. So get your code editor. Good. Now in Go, a method is simply a function with a special receiver argument. A method is simply a function with a special receiver argument. This receiver binds the method to a particular struct type, allowing structs not only to hold data but also have a behavior. So we have our normal struct that we will declare. Let's say we have our struct called person, and we will say this is a struct. Then inside it, we will say that our struct has a name, which is a string, and an age, which is supposed to be an integer. Good. So we have it over here. Good. Now we have our struct. So in our main function over here, good, we will instantiate a variable to our struct. So let's say a person, right? Let's say person. Then we will instantiate it and connect it to our struct. So person, which is our struct over here. Then we will now give the values of our struct. So it has a name, which is a string. So the name first. So a string. So don't forget your quotation. So let's say John. Good. Then don't forget your comma as well. Then the age, which is an integer. So let's say 28. Don't forget your comma as well. Okay, we have it over here. Now, because we have not yet used it, that's why we are saying we have declared it, but it is not used. Good. Now, before we use it, we will go and first create our method and connect it to our struct over here. Good. Now, let's create our method. So we will say greet. Okay. Okay. So in this method, we will connect it to the struct that we have over here. Now, how do we connect it? So before we write the name of the method greet over here, we will now bring a bracket over here and say that p, then we will do asterisk, then the struct name over here. Now the p here is how we will use to access the details or the values of the struct that we have here. Good. Now we have our method over here. Now inside the method we will print the name and the age. Okay, so the name, we will do p dot name, then we will do p dot age for the age also over here. Good. Are we together? Powerful. Now because we have not imported our format package, that's why we are seeing error over here. So let's import that over here. Good. It is imported and the error should go. Great. Now inside our main function, we will now do person dot the Greek method that we create over here. So you see that. So let's run it and let's see. Great. We see it over here, John and 28. Yes, as simple as that. So if you see it over here in the main function, as we instantiated the person struct over here to the person variable over here, we gave it the name John and the age 28. Then if you do person.greet, it means that we are passing the variable over here to the greet method. Now when we go to the Greek method, we will see that it is connected to the struct called person over here. It is connected to it. Now it will now look at the name that the person holds, and we will see it over here, John. And because we are now passing it to the method. It will just take the name and bring it over here as the name. Then we are using this letter to access it. Good. Then the same thing applies to the age as well. Then we have it over here. As simple as that. Great. Now you can think of struct method as actions that your struct can perform. So you turn the plain data into a living and a functional object. Now let's look at value receivers versus pointer receivers. In our struct method, we will look at value receivers and pointer receivers. Let's clean this up. Okay, and the name of our struct over here, let's say it's called a rectangle. Good. Now a rectangle who has a width and a height too over here, and both are going to be float, right? Let's say float 32. Both are going to be a float 32. Now we have our struct declared over here. Now in our main function over here, then we will declare a variable, and let's call it rect, and we will instantiate our struct to it, our struct called rectangle. Then you pass the value of the struct that we have declared. So it has a width and a height. So let's give them a value of 5 and 3. So now let's create our method and connect our struct to it. Now our method, we are going to call it area. That will be the name of our method, and it is going to always return a float because the values of the struct that you have declared are floats. So it is going to return a float. So before we do our curly braces over here, we are going to say that this is going to return a float. Okay, so let's say float 32, and we are going to connect it to the rectangle struct. So over here we will do, and we will bring our R to represent it, and we will write the name of our struct rectangle over here. Good. Now inside it, what is this method going to do actually? We misspelled the float over here. Good. Now what is this method going to do? This method is going to calculate area of the rectangle, so it's going to calculate it. Now let's look at that. Good. Now it was going to return the width of the struct multiplied by the height of the struct rectangle. Exactly. So now when we print, we are going to print the rect area that we have over here, and we call the method over here. Now what this is going to do is that it's going to use the 5 and the 3. The 5 is the width of the struct that we have declared here, which is a float, and the 3 over here. Then as we are calling it, we are doing the rect dot area method. Then it will just pass those values into the area method, and when they get here, it is going to multiply the width and the height and get us the area of that rectangle and return it. As simple as that. Let's look at it on the console. Good. Now we see it over here, 15. Exactly. So 5 times 3 is 15. So the method over here receives a copy of the struct that you have declared here and use it to multiply anytime a function, or we call it and pass the instantiated struct to that method. It will actually receive a copy of it, then it will do the multiplication, or it will perform that task and return it in this data format as you specify, and it will be given. Now let's look at pointer receiver. Let's clean this up. Let's clean this up. Let's create a new method for it and say that this method, we are going to call it scale. And in this one, it is not going to return a value. It is not going to return a value as in the case of a value receiver. Okay, so this one, the method is actually receiving a parameter. So let's say that it is receiving a parameter called factor. Then we will specify the data type of that parameter. We will say that it is a float. Okay, so let's give it a float 32. Then inside our method, we will say that let's connect it to our struct, then proceed from there. So in this case, because it is a pointer receiver, we will do R, then we will do asterisk, then we will bring our struct over here. Let's say we are going to multiply a factor by the values of the struct. So let's call them one by one. So R dot the width, and we see that any value that comes from over here, we will multiply it and we will just equate it to the value. So we will multiply and equate it with the factor that we have declared over here. Good. The same thing applies to the height as well. Good. Now inside our main function, we will say direct dot the scale, then we will pass our value of the factor that we say that the method is taking over inside. Then we say that that value is going to be 2. Good. Now when we print the width of the rectangle, we call it direct then the width. Over here we are supposed to see the value of not the 5 over here, but instead, as we are passing this value of the factor to the scale method, the 2 comes in here as the factor, then it will multiply the width and it will save it as the current value. You see that? So actually you use this pointer receivers to modify the struct, not make a copy, but actually modify it. Let's print it on the console and see. Now we see it over here. We are getting 10. Powerful. So meaning that it has actually modified the value of the struct that we declared over here, which was the 5 in the case of the width. And as we are now printing the width, it is actually multiply the 5 with the 2, which is the factor over here. The same thing if we do with the height too, it will give us 6. It will multiply the 2 and the 3. Let's look at that one. Let's print the width also as well as the height as well and see. Good. So now we see it over here. The height is also coming out as 6, not 3 exactly. So you use value receivers when you don't need to modify the struct field. You use the pointer receiver when you want the method to update the struct data. Exactly. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this tutorial, please subscribe and like and comment if you have any question or you need any understanding in any other topic. Thank you very much.